hands over the wall. Some of the towers bore a conical roof, covered in slate tiles in the new courtly style, and glass caught the setting sun in every window. A fortune that done had cost the Western Fox clan, and townsfolk grumbled that bribes from the Gwerbret's law courts had paid for it all. Just outside the main gates huddled a crowd of some 100 persons, but they kept a respectful distance from Craddock, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground and slumped against the wall. Under his dirty grey breeches and a shirt as loose as a shroud, he was so ghastly thin, all bone and skull's grimace, his skeletal fingers clutched round his harp, that Alyssa wondered how he managed to hold his head upright. Kneeling beside him were his 2 young apprentices, both in tears, and the grim-faced journeyman who'd sworn to take his place when the end came. "Not one sign of the Gwerbret and his wretched heir," Rhys muttered. "May the gods curse them." "Hush!" Alyssa snapped. "You'll get yourself transported to the desolation for saying things like that." Behind them, the crowd swelled steadily. It filled the street, spilled out into the long carriage drive round the dun walls, but everyone kept silent, barely breathing, it seemed. Alyssa felt them as a huge hand pressing at her back, driving her forward. She moved close enough to see Craddock clearly. The pale grey hair, plastered to the all-too-prominent skull, the eyes, pools of unseeing shadow. One of the apprentices dipped a linen napkin into a jug of water, then held it to his master's lips. For some days now, Craddock had been too weak to drink from a cup. The bard's mouth stayed shut. With a wail, the prentice burst out keening and flung the napkin to the cobbles. "He's gone!" the journeyman shouted. "Look you at Aberwyn's justice!" The crowd roared. The keening began, high and musical, sobbing and wailing as everyone began to sway, back and forth, back and forth. Alyssa keened with them. She linked her arms with Mava on one side and Rhys on the other, as they rocked, bound by grief. Their leader was dead. Their leader had fallen in a battle as real as any fought with swords and crossbows. In a time of change all over the far-flung kingdom of Deverry, the Gwerbret of Aberwyn had held firm for the past and its outmoded ways, even while the most famous bard in the province of Eldith starved himself at his door in protest. Cutting over the keening and the sobs came the call of a silver horn. With the grinding of a winch and the grumble of timbers on stone, the great gates swung slowly open. Through the widening view, Alyssa caught sight of men in red and brown tartan trousers and vests over their loose shirts, mounting horses. Cavalry sabres flashed as the horn sounded again. The men were sheathing the sabres and taking some other weapon out of their belts. Alyssa stood on tiptoe to see. Horsewhips. "Run!" Alyssa screamed. She let go of Mava and Rhys's arms. "When the crowd breaks, we'll be trampled." But although the crowd swirled as the Prudence slipped away, it refused to break. When the cavalrymen edged their horses out, they carried not sabres, but horsewhips. After all, it was their own fellow citizens they were facing, there in the darkening streets. For a moment, utter silence and utter stalemate held. The troop leader, the Gwerbret's younger son, Lord Gwal, urged his bay horse forward. "Disperse!" he called out. "In the name of Aberwyn, I command you, clear this street immediately!" The keening continued. The crowd swayed but never moved to leave. "Rabble, all of you!" Gwal stood high in his stirrups and yelled. "Scum! Disperse!" A rock sailed through the air and smacked Lord Gwal's horse in the chest. With a whinny it reared, nearly unseating its rider. The crowd laughed and howled. Gwal settled his horse down and began screaming at the top of his lungs, but his words died in the screech from the mob. Laughter and rage all mingled into one hideous noise. Another rock, another. The troop swung horsewhips up and charged full toward the crowd. Alyssa heard herself shriek with the others. She tried to run, found herself caught in a press of bodies, looked round frantically, but saw no sign of Mava and Rhys. Apparently they'd taken her good advice, even if she'd been too stupid to follow it herself. All round her people were screaming, staggering.